Hello and welcome to another edition of the Blue and Gold Gridiron Show, where this week we're super excited to have Coach JT Slade on the program. Coach Slade has had several stops coaching, including most recently at ALA Gilbert North, where they were the 2022 state champions at the 4A level. They subsequently moved up and have done some good things. Very knowledgeable guy. We're excited to continue going with our talk on defensive football with him. But before we get started, I just want to take one moment to remind everybody that the Blue and Gold Gridiron Show is brought to you by School Funder. School Funder, the only online fundraising company in America that lets you keep all of the money your team raises minus the small 3% processing fee. Sound too good to be true? I can tell you firsthand it's not. We used School Funder last year for our lift-a-thon, and in a few short weeks we raised $12,000. We're able to keep virtually all of that, like I said, minus the small 3% fee. Most other companies would keep in excess of $2,000 to maybe even $2,500, not with School Funder. You wouldn't give away 20% of the wins your team earns, so I give away 20% of its proceeds that it builds through fundraising. So, schoolfunder.org, schoolfundr.org, and let them know that the Blue and Gold Gridiron Show sent you. All right, so like I said, I am very excited to talk about some defensive stuff. I always love hearing about different philosophies and different fronts and coverages and schemes that way. But before we get into some of those specifics, and I know Coach has a PowerPoint and some other stuff that he's been so gracious to share with us. But before we get into that, I want you to take just a moment, Coach, and tell us about your football story.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. I've actually listened to a couple of your shows, and it got me interested in connecting with you guys somehow. Yeah, my story is probably a lot similar to a lot of coaches. I grew up in it. My dad was a football coach, so my dad started coaching football in, I think it was like 1990. That's like a year before I was even born. And he was a college football player, so he played collegiately at New Mexico State University. And then he coached for a couple, I think he coached maybe a year in college, and then he wanted to get back into high school and do some teaching and things. I think that the college coaching for him was just too much movement. I think when he was at New Mexico State, now they're not like the flagship program in the FBS, but he had like 3 different line coaches in his 3 years there. And so a lot of moving, and he didn't want to do that. So he got into high school coaching. And I was basically just raised on the sidelines. I was the water boy. I was the ball boy. I was the equipment manager. I did it all from a young age. I know that when I think it was 2003, I was in 6th grade. My dad was coaching at Mogollon High School, which is up in Heber, Arizona, where I'm from. And I had attendance issues because I would leave every Friday. We have to travel a lot in 1A. You have to leave it. It's like an all-day thing. You leave at 10 a.m. And so my dad was a teacher at the school, and I started missing too much school because I would go to all the away games and things like that. So that was a lot of fun. Probably my first memory, though, was in 1999. My dad was coaching at Shoalo High School, and they were playing Blue Ridge in the state championship game. And I remember sitting in the back of the end zone watching J.R. Pierce come off the edge, and I think he got a sack. Like Blue Ridge had scored and was down by 1. They went for 2 and the win. And I don't know how long you guys have been around, but this was in 1999. And I watched J.R. Pierce just come off the edge and sack the quarterback for the 2-point conversion and watch the Shoalo Cougars beat Blue Ridge. And that was like when it was like I had the itch at that point. I was barely 8 or 9 years old. And that was a good memory. But for sure, I just grew up in it. My dad instilled that in us. I'm the oldest boy of I have 4 younger brothers, and so we all are kind of addicted.
That's great, Coach. What was your introduction in your first, formal or professional position, if you will?
Yeah, so I had just gotten back from serving a mission for my church, and I came home and I was living in Heber, and my dad was the head coach at the time. My little brother below me was going to be a senior, and my dad asked if I wanted to help with the JV team. And so he called and scheduled a little interview with me and one of my best friends at the time, who actually is the head wrestling coach now at ALA Gilbert North. His name's Jack Gaylor. And he said, "Hey, do you guys want to be co-head coaches?" And I was like, co-head coaches. Like, I want to be the head coach. Like, why am I sharing this with this guy? But we were co-head coaches of the Mogollon Mustangs JV team that year, and we went 6-0, undefeated. And I called the defense, and Jack called the offense. And my little brother actually was the quarterback as a freshman on that team. And that same group of guys, as juniors and seniors, won state. And so that was kind of a cool. We say that we were the foundation for them. Jack and I were the co-head coaches.
That's awesome. What a cool memory to have coached your younger brother. And certainly I remember some of those great Sholo teams. I was a freshman in college in 99, and I remember Sholo winning in 99. They won one in 2003 and then won a few more with Coach Reisdorf there. So they've obviously had great success. So that's super exciting. So getting into a little more football specific type questions, Coach. What is it about a defensive? How do you go about choosing your defensive system? Do you fit it to your personnel? Or are you kind of married to a certain scheme, an even front, odd front? How do you go about deciding the defensive system for your team?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, sometimes you're limited. I feel like sometimes you're limited just on base where you're at. You know, when I started coaching up in Heber, we're playing 8-man football, and so we just played man defense because it's just like, hey, that's all you can do there. And generally, just being honest, in Heber, you just had better athletes than a lot of the schools you were playing, so you could get away with it. You could play man defense and bring a lot of pressure, and you're probably going to win a lot of games. As I kind of developed a little bit more, I started coaching with Randy Reisdorf, and I do have to give Randy a shout out. He's just another part of the football journey. I'll get right back on topic though, I promise, Cody. But coming from a football family, I actually married Randy's daughter. And so if you could talk about a match made in heaven, you know, my dad's been coaching football for 30 years, and then I get to go and marry Randy Reisdorf's daughter, and I think Randy's one of the best coaches in Arizona, as far as just success and skill and what he teaches these young men. And so yeah, talk about, like I said, match made in heaven. My wife has been around it just like I was. I mean, she was at these practices at Westwood High School as a young girl walking around the track with her mom. Like, we had the same upbringing, essentially, in the football world. But I really learned about defensive philosophy from Randy. It's interesting because if you know him, he's so aggressive on offense. Like, his offense is go fast, go hard, get the ball out. I mean, we're snapping the ball, we're using hand signals. I mean, they are fast, aggressive. He's not punting ever. That we could do. I could talk for an hour on all the times we should have punted and didn't. And that's him. Well, defensively, he couldn't be more opposite. Defensively, Randy's a bend don't break. He's very conservative. And so when I started coaching with him at ALA, that was hard for me because I wanted to do what the head coach wanted. He says, "Hey, we're gonna play a 4-3. We're gonna play a lot of quarters coverage." And eventually, we started running basically a 4-2 because we didn't have a guy that was good enough to play inside by himself. So we needed 2 inside backers at all times because we didn't have those guys. But to answer your question, Cody, I think you have to be able to bend and kind of manipulate your defense into the kids that you have, because if you try to force things on them and you don't have the dudes, like, you're not going to be successful. So you have to be able to move a little bit and keep your rules the same and change, you know, your philosophy sometimes.
100%. And I don't know if you've noticed this. For me, bouncing between different levels, 4A, 6A, you kind of go in and you think, all right, this might work here, or this, we might want to push here, and the schematic advantage could work in our favor. But for me, I at least noticed that, football is just football, and what worked at the lower level was successful generally as you moved up, just keeping the kids, fast and not, tying up their feet. So did you notice any kind of schematic shifts that you wanted to push as a coach as you've moved up throughout the levels?
Yeah, that's actually an awesome question. I'm glad you asked that because we started out, we were in 3A, and so when we were at Sholo, you kind of were the bigger dog, like you had the dudes, you had good athletes for the 3A level, right? And you had the dudes that you could compete almost every year, and you had the systems, you had the culture, you had all that. And as we got to ALA, we didn't have very many good players. See, at the very beginning, we were brand new. We had 13 kids at our first football practice at ALA, and then translate that into 2 years later playing in the 3A semifinals. And so really, it was the next year we played in the quarterfinals, and then the year after that we played in the semis. But that's what I'm saying. When we were at Shola, we just played a 4-3. We had a middle linebacker, and usually you have kids that play young, so you have a sophomore and you get him for 3 years, and then it's like, oh man, this kid graduates. Now what do we do? We'll just fill in the next backer. It's probably his cousin or his little brother usually, and then you move on. Well, at ALA, I didn't have a middle backer that could play two gaps. It was weird. I didn't understand. Like these kids just didn't have that knowledge yet. And so I quickly learned like we had to have two backers inside or else we weren't going to be able to stop anybody from running the ball. And so as we got above and we moved up to 4A, I mean, it's a little different because a lot of those 3A schools moved up. Like we played Snowflake in 3A, then they moved up. Same with Yuma Catholic, they moved up. But in 4A, I learned like there's a lot of teams that were just bringing in tight ends, fullbacks, and they were trying, like in our region, they were just going to run the ball right at us. So then I learned like, dude, we can't just play a traditional 4-2. Like we have to have some movement up front. Because if our guys are just doing the same thing up front, our 4 dudes, because they're not like we have a bunch of 250-pound linemen. Like we have defensive ends that are 210 pounds, and that's just the way that it is. Like we didn't have a bunch of dudes that were just big guys, and so we had to start moving a little bit. We had to do some slanting. We had to do some stunting up front just to try to catch them off guard. And then when we moved up to 5A, the quarterback play got a lot better. So then it was like, hey, we have pretty good athletes in our secondary. We can just play quarters and just keep your butt to the sideline, drop your corners every time. We had really good linebacker play where we had some fast kids, maybe a little undersized to play linebacker, but they can move really well. And so we could drop into coverage, and in 3A and 4A, nobody was really able to throw the ball consistently. Well, then you go play, Max Hall teams, and he has a Division I quarterback. Like he'll make every throw. If you don't bring pressure on him, he'll sit there and make. Enoch Watson is a kid that he just destroyed us. He made. I think the game we played them at home 2 years ago when our first year in 5A and they were 6A. I think he threw like 20 out of 25 completions, and that was on me. Like we did not make it hard for him. And so it's like you just kind of learn and grow as a coach too. Like I got my butt kicked that day by Max because he had an answer for everything. We didn't bring enough pressure. And so, yeah, like you have to adapt. And so that's probably my biggest thing. Like the quarterback play at the higher levels is really, really good. And so you can't just sit back and be super conservative as much.
I thought that's an interesting point you bring up there, Coach. I was talking to a couple guys about Arizona is so conducive to so much quarterback training, particularly in the Valley. Maybe not necessarily in Heber and where we are, where it's a little bit colder in the winter, but in the Valley, you can be out there throwing in t-shirt and shorts all year round. And there's many quarterback gurus that have guys training from a very early age, and they're definitely doing a tremendous job. And now, whatever my thoughts may be on it, the winter 7-on-7 scene is quite interesting as well. But the point being is there's quarterbacks that are coming in, I think, way ahead of where they would have 15, 20 years ago even. They're coming in at a pretty high level, knowing a lot of knowledge at the quarterback position, certainly. So that's an interesting thing. Other interesting, Coach Reisdorf, you bring up. I have coached, I think, at our youth camp, Zeke Wright, who is the fourth of the Wright brothers. Chris Wright's a good friend of his. They're both Westwood guys. So
Yeah.
Coach Reisdorf, and got defeated by him a few times as well, but certainly an excellent football coach, definitely. So moving on, though, how do you go about practice planning from a defensive perspective? And in being it the head coaches, that's another interesting question too, is how's it worked with an offensive-minded head coach in terms of what time you need for practice? Do you guys 2 platoon, 1 platoon? What do you need to get implemented in your practice philosophy?
Yeah, we had to do it. It's super hot down here, obviously, in the early August and even in September, it's still super warm. So we practiced in the morning at ALA while we were there, and I gotta tread lightly because I do have Sunday dinner today with Randy, so I gotta tread lightly. But it was hard from a defensive perspective when I'm going up against guys like, and I say I'm going up, but I'm just saying when I'm game planning for Max Hall type offenses, Ty Detmer type offenses, like guys that are, I mean, those guys are really good. Max Hall is one of the best high school coaches probably in the country. That guy is phenomenal play caller and prepared. He's always prepared. So like when I'm going up against those types of dudes, Like, I feel like we need more time. Well, we're not two platooning yet. I mean, we started getting into it later, but we didn't have guys that just played one side of the ball, even when they moved us up to 5A. So we were trying to find, that was our first step, was trying to find guys that we could just play one way. And there's certain kids that we just couldn't do it. Like we had, you guys would know some, because I mean, like we had a little safety. His name's McKay Beardall. He was number 5 for us. And if he was playing offense, we played Prescott a couple years ago, and he was our little running back, kind of scat back. And if he wasn't playing defense, like the next guy was just a little too far down. Like we couldn't do it. So he had to play offense. Same with Titan Slade, my little brother, number 12 from ALA from a few years ago when we played Prescott. Like we had to have those guys playing both ways. Boston Morris, same thing. And so finding practice time was hard because those guys are tired. So like they were tired in games, they were tired at practice. But I would say Randy did a good job of dividing time. So he was always fair and made sure that we had ample time to prepare as far as practice goes. But I think that the biggest thing is formation, like recognition is a really, really big one for me. So just simply at the very beginning of practice, what I found was really, really easy and efficient was before we even stretched, we'd go out there for 5 to 6 minutes, not a lot of time, and the JV and backup, I'd just give them a formation. They'd line up in that formation, and the defense just simply lined up. All we had to do was line up. So you're not moving your legs yet because we hadn't stretched, we hadn't conditioned yet. And so we're just doing formation recognition. So before practice even started, we're doing some formation recognition, getting into it, and then Randy would go into some of his offensive stuff, and we'd have offensive practice on Monday. But then when it was a defensive day, we do our formation recognition, we get through all of our things, and then the last 20 minutes or so, we'd let Randy have some more time, and he'd go do some run game, because ALA Gilbert was running the ball all the time with Randy. Just kidding. But we just got to share the time. Just keep it. It honestly was the same. When we were playing 5A, it was no different than our 3A practices. It was structured the exact same. So.
Well, I'm really glad to hear that your offensive coaches made time for defense. That always makes me happy. I know it can be a struggle. But with that, you mentioned, leveling up and adding schematic complexity, but also keeping it simple for kids. But then you got kids going both ways. So how have you found to balance all of that, to not put too much on them, but to, get what you need done?
Yeah, I think just having, first of all, you have to rep everybody. Like that's what I've learned too, is kids are going to get hurt more, a little more physical. When we went to 5A, you're playing some really big linemen. We had Horizon High School had some really big linemen, and our defensive line was probably not fit for that. So just making sure kids are healthy is number one, but also repping your 1s and 2s equivalently. So like, and some of those kids are just a little they're gifted kids. So you can give them, the first 4 reps, but then make sure their backups are getting equal reps. And so that in case they have to come out or when they're tired and they have to get a blow, those guys can just fit right in, and be able to play and understand. And then just treating everybody the same. Like our responsibilities with film time and our grading systems is the same whether you're a starter or a backup player, or if you're a sub player. Like we're trying, just like every coach, you're trying to prepare everybody for battle, not just your 11 dudes. Like it's a team effort. And so keeping that in mind obviously helps. But I would say, like you said, Tyler, just the simplicity of it. Like our rules, we might have a different front one week, but pretty much every single rule we have is the same, no matter the call. And what I mean that is like our techniques stay the same. Our leverages stay the same. We might slant and we might twist, but the job is the same for almost every time. Especially from your front. You can get a little bit, that's probably the worst part about slanting and stunting is you lose your technique a little bit because you're trying to go so fast and make havoc, happen. But like our secondary, our rules were staying the same almost every single time. As far as like, your corners, you're an outside in player. So you're coming from the sidelines, you're feeling from the outside in every time. Even if we're in man defense, you're still going to go and come outside in when you're rallying to the ball. And like our outside backers, whether you're walk down on the line or you're playing in space, like your outside shoulder has to be free. Like there's just little tiny rules that never changed. And so kids could kind of change weekly to depending upon who we're playing. And that was another challenging part too, is like you're playing one week we played Prescott. I mean, you guys remember that game where you guys rushed for probably 300 yards on us at your place, and like the next week I think we had to go play a spread team. And so that was just kind of the ins and outs of Arizona football. Like we're playing a heavy run team, and then the very next week, like we're probably dropping 8 a lot. You know what I mean? Playing Yuma Catholic or something like that. But just having it be simple is the key.
I think that's such a good point about being a high school off or defensive coordinator. In some ways, can be as difficult as any level because really at the college and definitely I think at the pro level, you see a bit of the same offense every week,
Right.
similar. Whereas in high school, you could see a wing T team, you could see a flex bone team, all spread pass, spread to run, different elements of that. And it's interesting you bring up Enoch Watson. He was at Coconino, and it really shows you what a tremendous job Max Hall did with them when they got over to him because and no disrespect to anything that was happening over there, but he was running a double wing offense and did a very good job running it. But when he got to ALA, Queen Creek really, really took off as a passer, which was interesting. I actually had a friend of mine had his 50th birthday party yesterday, and we were talking about I coached against Max Hall his senior year in a game, and it was not a pleasant memory. We actually lost 74-0 to Max's 2002 Mountain View Toros, and we were joking. A couple of us were at the table telling jokes, and I believe I was on the headset that night, and one of our coaches, we were talking on the headset at halftime. Hey, what can we do? And he's like, "All right, I got it. Let's just tell them to stay in the locker room at the half." I think that might be our best bet. We didn't end up doing that. We came out and finished the game, but anyhow, he was definitely a tremendous player and
Yeah.
really an excellent coach as well. So moving on to the preparation phase of it on Saturdays or Sundays or whenever you're getting ready for the ball game, what are maybe some things that you look for in preparing? Some weaknesses you're trying to exploit, players you may be trying to exploit in your defensive game plan. And the other thing that I found really interesting, Coach Bruce and I have been talking about this quite a bit. What data do you use that's the most important? Because I personally have found at the high school level, the down and distance data has not been as meaningful to me as the formation data. So I'd be curious to know what you're looking at and what information you take into a game plan.
Yeah, great question. You guys have been around for longer than me. There's a guy by the name of Roger Suckamel. I don't know if you've recognized that name.
I
He,
coached against him. He was at Westwood
yeah,
and excellent football coach. Very, very good. Coached against him a number of times as a young coordinator and a young position coach when I was on the staff at Dobson. Excellent
okay,
football.
so you know Roger. We won't get into Roger too much. He was a grumpy old man is the best way I describe him. But I love that man with all my heart. I just went to lunch with him. He was visiting last week. But when I was my first year at ALA, Randy brought Roger in and said, "Hey, JT's gonna coordinate the defense," and he basically was just like, "Roger, teach him, like go and teach. I want because I'm a little bit better with the kids. Roger has just a ton of knowledge, and he's really the one that taught me how to prepare. And so because of that, I maybe have some tendencies that are a little more old school because Roger super old school. But obviously, I love using the huddle data. But Roger and I would sit there on Saturdays, and first we would just go through the couple games that we have or whatever, but we would just use their formations. And so I would draw out a formation on a little manila. It's actually one of those little manila folders. We didn't use white paper. I don't know why, actually, now that I'm thinking of it, but I still do it.
The same thing.
Yeah, so you get those manila folders you can fold out, and so we draw out the formation and then just put a little tally mark. Now, Huddle does this for you. If you install Huddle right and you can really get the formations down, you can it'll do this for you. But for whatever reason, me and Roger just like to do it ourselves because in our brains we think we're better than the computer, and I don't think that's necessarily true. Because I have a lot of friends that are like, "Dude, you could just get that from Huddle," but I'm like, "Yeah, but they'll miss a play every now and then," whereas I won't. Like I'll watch every single play. And so we're just tracking formations. And so we watch, a full 2 games, and you lay out your folder and you just look, all right, they're in trips left 32 times. They were trips right 38 times. They were in, that's probably more of a Yuma Catholic set being in trips that much. For Prescott, it wouldn't have been in trips 38 times. I remember those days. You guys were just pounding us right at us. But so you just track every single formation. And so for me, I was taking their 5 best formations. I felt like if you spent all of your time on 5 formations and you could stop that and they had to get to their 6th best formation or their 6th best, call, like we were probably going to be in a pretty good spot. And so I took the 5 best formations and then I went to the plays, and we would obviously just call it whatever we call it. So like Randy's scheme, when we would drop our scout cards, the play would be called our version of that play. So I don't know, maybe, whatever. We're running trips right, and you guys call it counter and we call it Flacco and whatever, and that's just the way it was. So the kids can kind of say, all right, this is just like Flacco, and they read the card, and so then the scout team has a better chance of running the play correctly if they have their own terminology in it. And so, I would write out every formation, track every single play, and it wasn't so bad during the season, but when you get into the playoffs is when it gets super hard, because like when we played Snowflake in the finals a couple years ago, I think I had like 13. I had every game of them. You just get it from everybody else, and no one tells anybody, but you just get every game somehow. And then you have like the 2 years prior we played them, and then we have like 15 years at Sholo that we played. And so we have like years of game film, and we're tracking formations, and the amount of data we had on them for that game was crazy. Like, so we were taking, probably upped it to 7 or 8 formations then, and you just rep the crap out of their best formations and their best plays. And honestly, the play doesn't matter as much, if I'm being honest. You have to just get lined up, in my opinion. Like, just getting lined up and let them run what they're going to run. But if our guys are lined up, it honestly doesn't matter what they run. Like, they're going to have success. They don't suck. Same with every other team. Like, they're going to get a couple plays that are going to do good, but we have to be, when you're not lined up is when they chunk you. And so, yeah, that's my preparation. It's not meant for everybody, but I would literally draw out every formation. And kind of a funny story. One year we were playing Arizona College Prep, and they actually had a really good start. Love Coach Bluford, by the way. Great man. Great man. Really enjoyed coaching against him and talking with him. He's at ALA Ironwood now. And they were like ranked number 1 in the state, and we were ranked number 2 at the time. It was, it was a big game. We're gonna get them at home. Well, they run a spread offense, and so all of their plays, like, we run their same plays. And so the first defensive thing, I came out and I didn't have play cards. I just said, hey, they're running scissors here, or they're running Franklin, or they're running mesh, and I just had the plays listed out, our terminology, and the guys ran it. And Randy comes out there and he's like, what in the heck is going on? And I'm like, what? I'm like, we're running. He's like, where are the play cards? And I'm like, we don't need play cards. Like, they're running our same stuff. And he's like, I want play cards. Why don't we have the play cards? And I'm like, Rice, they run our same plays. And then he's like, I don't care what they run. Get me some freaking play cards. And so I go home, and then, I'm married to his daughter. So I go home that night. I'm like, you're freaking dad. Are you kidding me? He's like, we're running the same stuff. It doesn't matter. And I stayed up all night, and I drew out 100 freaking play cards so that because we had practice at 5:30. So then the next morning, I was like, here you go. And, I put a bow on the sheet, and I said, here's your play cards, And so we got him his play cards, and we ended up being ACP. And anyways, that was just kind of a funny experience with Randy. He would never lose a game because he wasn't prepared. That's for sure. We prepared. I would give a lot of credit to Randy, to Coach Suckamel, to my dad, because that's another thing I was going to say. Like, in 1A football, sometimes the coaching can fall off a little bit, but like, I felt like our coaches, like my dad, Ron Tenney, who was a Snowflake guy after he left Mogollon, like, our guys were prepared. And I think that gave us, we had better athletes, and then we knew what the freak we were doing, and we could win a lot of games like that.
Better safe than sorry, How has your preparation process changed or evolved over time?
Yeah, I think that when Cody mentioned down and distance, I think I'm trying to think of the best way to say it, because I'm not knocking 3A coaches by any means. Like, I coached 3A and I loved it. My dad was a coach at Shola High School, Round Valley High School. But I think that as you get better players in your brain, you start to get more complex. But sometimes that's bad. And a lot of the coaches at the higher levels, they're trying to do too much, and they're so easy to stop because they're not good at anything specific. They try to do too much. But sometimes when you're doing a lot and you have some dudes that can run and you have some guys that can throw it, like it becomes really, really hard to stop them because like they have the guys, they have the system, and they can block up front, and it's freaking hard. And so getting into that down and distance stuff was something that kind of evolved. I would say when we were in 3A, I didn't get into as much game preparation, but then when we were evolving into 4A, I mean, we had the chains out there every day. We were playing tons and tons of situational practices where we're spotting the ball and it's 3rd and 3 and it's 3rd and 7 and it's 3rd and 10 or it's 1st and 5, and we're practicing these, really getting into situational football. And we did that a little bit when we were at the lower level, but as we got into the bigger schools, I felt like you could get more from that data than maybe before. If I'm saying, I am never going to try to knock anybody. Like don't think I have it all figured out by any means, but that's just was what from, now that you've asked me that, thinking back, like that's probably one of the biggest things is just some of the finer details. Everything else is the same, but some of the finer details you got to be better on than them, because like I know that they're practicing their 3rd and shorts. So if we don't practice our 3rd and shorts defensively, we're going to get run over. And like 2-point conversions, we would practice, goal line defense 2-point conversions, because it comes down to a 2-point conversion. What are they going to run? Well, they've ran 10 throughout the whole year. I got that data from Huddle, and in those 10, they ran it 8 out of 10 times. So we got to load the box and just get ready for them to play smash mouth. So like some of that data, I'd say definitely evolved as you get to the 4A, 5A, 6A teams.
I think that makes a lot of sense, because I think as you have more athletes, bigger chance you're going to have more personnel groups, different ways to fit different guys in the scheme. I think that's a really interesting point that I always like hearing from defensive coaches, their perspective on. We're going to turn it over to you now, Coach. You're going to share your screen, coach us up on some stuff with your defensive system. Looking forward to learning, and Coach Brusso and myself will ask questions as you're presenting.
Okay, now I got to get my mouse to work. There we go. Give me 1 second here. Let's pull up, I'm just going to pull up a quick PowerPoint real quick. Let's skip. Okay, so some key points, and just so you guys can see this, it says always stay within your rules. So these are just a few things that I came up with. So for me, we're always staying within our rules. Like I said, you can change your front, you can change your pressures, you can change some of the things you do, but your rules have to stay the same. What I mean by that is like position-specific rules. If you're changing that week by week, so if 1 week our defensive end is wrong arming and going inside on a pulling guard, and then the next week he's staying square to the line and taking him on, you don't ever get good at that. You can't get good at wrong arming if you don't do it every single time. So maybe we change our front from a 4 to a 3-man, but our defensive end was still wrong arming every time. Same thing, like I said, with our outside linebacker play. Like our outside linebackers are always our gatekeepers. There was never a situation, no matter if we were in a 4-3 or a 3-4 or whatever it was, our outside backers were always our gatekeeper force player. So their outside shoulder always had to be free. We played like a really early on, a lot of bend, don't break. So we're going to dictate where you put the ball. You're never going to beat us over the top. We coach the crap out of just rallying to the football, which sounds silly. I know everybody does that, but that's what we do. Like I did that. If you're not going to run the ball, like you're just not going to play is really it. And then systematic pressure. So doing stuff that's inside of your system. So 4 no's of defense. I put a couple pictures here of my boys just because my wife made me. Don't judge me there. But we call this the 4 no's of defense, and you're going to see that it doesn't quite make sense because the last one is actually spelled N-O, not K-N-O-W. So, but the 4 no's of defense. So the first rule of defense is know your assignment. So know what you're supposed to do and the technique that you're supposed to have to do it. So the first one these are our defensive rules. So every single player that plays defense has to know the 4 rules. So you got to know your assignment. Second one is to know your alignment. Know how you're supposed to be lined up. So every formation, big component is our formation recognition period. It's 5 or 6 minutes, but it's probably one of the most effective 5 minutes of a whole practice script. Is just lining up, just simply lining up. And you can add some tempo to it. So you can run, 2 huddles at a time, and they're running 1 play and the next play, and then 1 play and the next play. And you can fit in, power I, and the next one is 5 wide. Like it doesn't matter how it is, we have to be able to get lined up. The third one is know the situation. So think about the situation the offense is in. Where do they want the ball to go versus where are we going to let them put the ball? Where are we going to allow the ball to go? So know the situation. And the last one is no big plays. So we came up with that, even though the last one is spelled N-O, it still makes sense. So we'll go back real quick. 4 knows the defense, know your assignment, know your alignment, know the situation, and no big plays. Any questions on that?
No, I love it, Coach. Very succinct to the point. I think that stuff is important to know what you emphasize. I've ever heard a lot of coaches say you get what you emphasize, you just can't emphasize it all.
Right. So we'll kind of come into some film here. I didn't break things up. I wanted to show this game just because it's not an Arizona opponent, because I don't ever want, like, I've got my butt kicked by plenty of Arizona coaches, but if I'm gonna like show something, I don't want people to think like, I don't know. I just didn't want to show any Arizona film. So
You could have shown us you tearing us up a few times. I would
I
have
wasn't
taken
about to do that because if you check the stats on that game, if it wasn't for a few turnovers, that game is a lot closer. Anybody who watches that, actually, unless I'm talking to Chris Wright, then I'll tell Chris, hey, we whooped you, Chris. But if anybody else that watched it, that game is a couple turnovers away from really going down to the wire. And I know, didn't the lights go out? Didn't the power, something happen with the
Yeah.
power? I remember, what a game. Okay, so we're playing Slam Academy here, and they kind of would do a good job of mixing up formations. So here you can see they have a fullback. So anytime there's 2 backs, we're immediately going to go to a 4-4 almost every single time. So there's 2 backs in the backfield, we're going to run a 4-4. So I want to see what you should be paying attention to first is both these inside backers. We have 2 inside backers. Both should be stepping with their inside foot. So if they got coached up that week, let's see. So number 50 didn't quite do it. This is the first game of the year too. So they should be stepping with their inside foot and getting a fit. Now the reason I wanted to show this play is if you watch number 11, he comes inside this block. His head should be outside this block. His head should be right here because he's our gatekeeper. He's our force player. And so Boston would have got graded negatively on this play, even though it wasn't a big play. He still made them come inside. He would have got a minus on this because he came inside this block. His outside shoulder is no longer free. And so we coach him to have it. We still get a decent fit at the end. And as you can see at the very end, let's just count how many guys we got. 1, 2, 3. We'll even count 71. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 guys at the ball. So that's not bad. We'll go to the next play. Hold on one second here. Okay. So we're a little late rotating. Our strong safety's coming down a little bit late. I'd like them to be spaced out a little bit more. But again, 2 backers inside, 1 gap for each guy. And let's see, they drop back. Okay. We're going to dictate where this ball goes. Corner should play outside in. This strong safety has to come down and play outside backer here when we walked him down to play in space. And if you watch him, he kind of freezes up on us. So he's reading run still, and he's out of sync. He should be flying under this right here is where he should be. And that's my little brother, so you know he got an earful. And then, of course, we're going to rally to the ball. How many guys? 1, 2. Not bad. Okay, this is some good stuff here. They're 2-back set, but they're going to motion over. So we got to see how our defense aligns and adjusts to what they do. So they run this guy in motion. They bring him down. They're running quarterback run. So they're trying to influence us. Let's go back real quick. They're trying to influence us. Number 11 should slide in. So number 11 should slide into 50. 50 should slide here, and we should just be able to widen out, and everybody keeps 1 gap. It should all stay the same. We get a little bit too wide, and our inside backer takes a bad angle. And there we go. We got number 11 has to scrape across. Now, we're always a gap replace defense. So what I mean by this is if this guard, so number 50's gap, this guy's got this gap. So number 50 has this gap right here. He has this B gap, if you can see that. I know it's kind of hard. 50 has B gap. So if these guys, if he's getting movement or action that's taking him this way, this guard's pulling, he immediately is going to gap exchange, and he's going to go to this A gap, and this backer is going to come and fill and scrape over. And he is going to now gap replace. And so everybody should be able to, gap exchange. And that rule stays the same no matter if we're in a 4-3 or a 4-2. So we don't get a very good exchange here. Number 11 does a pretty good job, and he finishes scraping over.
Coach, let me ask you, at what
Yep.
point that tight end wing alignment there, you said you guys categorize that as two back. At what point, if that guy is just off the ball, but he's truly outside the tackle and not in that kind of sniffer position where he can kick out, do you change how you identify that based on how he is, or if he's off, is it automatically considered two back?
Yeah. Okay. So that's a great question. If it was, that would be kind of where you get into your down and distance. So on first down, if he's flirting with it, maybe, I mean, he's pretty inside here. So we would call this, we'd go to red immediately on this and just play a 4-4. But yeah, you're right. If he came like right here, if it was first down, I would stay in it because I just think we're going to be okay. We're going to rally to the ball, maybe have your safety get a little more depth just to be safe. But yeah, I think it just depends on where he's at, and it depends on who that guy is. Like if that dude can run, then I'm probably not going to play very many games, especially if it's third and long. I'm not going to care if they run the ball a little bit. We'll get out of the base and get back to our normal stuff. But these backers, come on. Let's see here. Okay, these backers are reading guards every time. So that's one thing that I did learn too was you can get beat by some OCs are really good at just causing havoc. They'll pull a guard, just to see what you're doing, and that can get challenging. But in 3A and 4A, we had a ton of success just reading the guards. So if that guard's pulling, you're immediately gap exchanging to the way the guard pulls almost every single time. Okay, so a little bit of play action here. Oh, let me get back. So we get beat on this play. This corner should be read number 2. So if you see here, my corner comes inside a little bit. Now, we are in a cover 3, and so it's a little bit more challenging. But as soon as we get this guy should still be dropping here, and the safety takes a terrible angle. I actually remember this play because this should have been a touchdown. This team only scored 1 touchdown on us, but there should have been 2 right here. We kind of took a really bad angle. Our corner messed up on that with his as far as his alignment goes. I want to see though on this back end what they ran on this back end if they were just running a slant. Yeah, they just ran a slant. Okay, give me 1 second. I got a couple lined up to show you.
Coach, you were talking about some of those false keys you'll see at the 5A and 6A levels, and I would even argue there you can get away with that once or twice and maybe have some success, but I would say you're probably still in very good shape at any level of football 90% of the time. You're seeing what those linemen are doing. As an old coach told me, the linemen are truth tellers and the backfield is all liars.
Yeah, that's very true. Very true. Okay, so we're doubles on a hash here. So sometimes I cheat when we're on a hash. What I mean by that is this is third and long, 3rd and 7. I'd say maybe it's like 6 or 7. But sometimes I'll stay in the cover 3 when we're on a hash, just because it keeps guys in the box to help you on the weak side in case they're running some sort of counter play. But then what it also does is to the field side you have help. You're going to have a corner bailing, you're going to have a safety over, and you're going to have a backer. But in this case, they're doubles. We're just going to stay in a 4-2. So what I don't like about this is our overhang is to the backside because of if he runs a wheel. So we kind of are playing a weird spot. We're vulnerable right now to run game, outside zone this way here. But I want to show you this corner play here from number 3. So he's in a bail technique. And he's reading the number 2. You can see his eyes. He's not focused on this receiver. He's watching this guy, right? And this guy's reading 2 also. He needs to drop his butt on his back pedal. Again, that's my brother. He's just standing straight up. He's going to get smacked at the dinner table for this technique here from this free safety spot. But I love this corner play here. He shuffles. He maybe is just a little slower than that guy, but a pretty good recovery. I'd like him to be on top of this, but I don't think this is a bad rep. I'd give him a positive rep on this. Now, this is a good scheme because they know that we have pretty good safeties here in the middle of the field just because both these guys started as sophomores, so they have film on them from the previous year, and they kind of run this comeback with the number 2 that really occupies this safety. You can see the number 2, he's bailing, and then as soon as he curls, he's plant stepping and he's driving on that curl route. Well, that leaves this post why, you're basically man on man, right? Like you're man to man defense. And so I like this recovery by our corner here. Like I said, that guy's probably just a little bit naturally faster, but a pretty good play by the corner to finish that rep. I'd give him a positive when we graded him the next day. Even though he might be not completely on top, I think he's in a pretty good spot there.
Absolutely, coach. And that's something, like you said, the quarters teams you'll see a lot of, where that little dig curl type route to try to occupy the safety and get that post over the top. So I think he played that tremendously. Let me ask you, coach, are you a shuffle team or a backpedal guy from the corners?
Shuffle. So we shuffle, and that's a good question. We're gonna shuffle probably 60-70% of the time. Now going back to what Tyler asked earlier, when we got into 5A for our first year, we did change that a little bit. So we started. You just realized we had to bring more pressure, and we also realized, like, it's hard to explain, but Coach Reisdorf, when we're playing offense, he's always in the mindset of our guys are going to win. We have better dudes. We have Division I wide receivers. Like, we're going to win our one-on-one routes. And then when we go play defense, I would always argue with him about it. So I'm like, Rice, these are the same kids. Some of these kids are the same guys. Like JT Slade, number 12, he's going to win on offense. He's also playing safety. So you have to have that same mindset. Like, let's play some man. Let's challenge these teams. Let's show them that we have some athletes that can run too. And he was always so afraid to do it. And so we started kind of changing a little bit more to a back pedal, probably that first year in 5A, just to kind of bring more pressure, keep guys in the box, and bring a little more heat, because we just played some quarterbacks that were pretty good. But for the most part, we are shuffling. They should be, at least. Yeah, that's a shuffle technique here by number 3. For sure, on the top of the screen, number 21 at the very top on the 30, he's shuffling. So, okay, I had a couple plays I wanted to just highlight real quick. Let me look at my phone real fast so I can find them. So just some simple, when I talked about in our rules, some simple pressers that are within our system, and I feel like they can be super, super effective. So we're here. This is 3rd down and goal. So we're in a position where you can see how deep my safety is. This is an absolute situation where we have to win this down. Do not give up a big play. But this quarterback, this kid was actually super wiggly. And so I thought, hey, let's bring a little bit of pressure. So we're in a 3-4 here. We're gonna drop 8 on film, probably about 80% of the time, where you can see we just sneak this guy down. This is just so easy. This is easy football. And your defensive end, who's been beating this tackle most of the game, he's a really good wrestler, 2-time state champion. He has a super good rip. And so he just plant steps in, and then he crashes to this B gap, and we just simply walk a backer down and bring him off the edge. And you can see it just confuses this tackle. Now, this is situational football. This tackle has seen this play by this defensive end probably 30 times in this game already, and we haven't brought pressure on it. Maybe not 30, probably 20 times where we've just tried to rip underneath him and get pressure on the quarterback. And now all of a sudden he's got 2 guys. So I can tell right away, this is something that we practice more than them. This is like the easiest stunt you could ever have. Walk a guy down, jab step, hard outside, bring him inside, and you can tell we whiff it. Look at that. This was another awkward dinner conversation with my brother. I'm like, are you kidding me, dude? I couldn't have set you up better. Like, I'm going to get yelled at for being your brother that I'm setting you up so good here. And they just whiffed. This quarterback was super wiggly. And then there's a penalty here. Look at this. This was not good. So we brought in, we got a penalty on this play, and so we got lucky. So I said, okay, let's do the exact same thing. So this is back-to-back plays. You can see the distance. Now it's 4th down. Let's do the exact same thing. So we get a hard jab step, same thing inside, and now we let him break us outside. I'm like, okay, so in my head, after watching this, I could tell we didn't practice this enough. Because watch number 12, he goes inside. His outside shoulder has to stay free. We have help inside. We have guys that are in there. And so this is a big learning experience for me when I'm like, okay, we have to practice our stunts and our pressures more. Because in our defense, we have to get so good at what we're doing from a fundamental standpoint that we didn't give nearly enough attention to our pressures, to our stunts, to our blitzes. And so this is just one simple way where now I went back to the drawing board and I said, hey, coach, we need a couple more minutes on this because clearly we have 2 shots. I mean, we have kill shots on this quarterback, back-to-back plays, and don't really get anything for it. I'm just going to go to one more game. Is that okay?
Absolutely,
Yep.
Coach. Please do.
Okay, I'm
I
going to
love
go.
how you're process oriented because of a lot of these games you're talking about. Most of them resulted in wins, but you guys are still seeking that continual improvement because I think that's such a critical part of coaching, whether you're coaching a really skilled team or not, is your goal is to be the best that you can be. And I think you're really emphasizing that in your improvement week to week.
100%. I mean, yeah, it was just a lot of fun. What it is being the coach football, you do this for a job. I can imagine coaching in college where you get paid to do this. Like, that just seems like cheating. So this running back was really good. So here's what I mean by our rules stay the same. So you can see here, this is a little different look than what you maybe just watched against that team from Nevada. So this dude was a stud. I can't remember his name. He ended up going to Red Mountain though. And he transferred to Red Mountain and was an absolute dog.
Isaiah Savoy, we played him in the 2022 playoffs. He
Okay.
was a stud. He
That
was,
dude was good.
yeah.
He could play. This guy could play. This quarterback, this whole team was fun. The coaches at Apache Junction, great guys. I mean, this is just a fun football game. But now you're looking at us, though. Look at us. Look how different we are. I mean, I remember telling Randy, I'm like, Randy, I can't believe you're going to let us play with 5 down linemen. You know, that's so nice of you because that's just not traditionally what he likes to do. So we were banged up early in this year too. So we just walked down our backer so that he's still comfortable. This kid's never put his hand in the dirt, so I'm not going to all of a sudden ask him to. And his rules should be the same. His outside shoulder should stay free. So now look what happens on the very first play of the game. He comes inside, they pull a guard, and we're not reading. Our 2 inside backers, this guard's pulling, they should both be exchanging over, and they don't do a very good job of this. And we kind of get over just a little bit late. So we have to have some help from our corner. Also, you can notice our corner's position is changing. Now he's backpedaling a little bit more than the shuffle. But good fill by the corner. Now, I just want to highlight our corner play is always outside in. So he almost gets beat here. And so outside in means you're playing from the sidelines and in. So watch him rally up. He's an outside player and has a pretty good fit. Let's go to the next play. Similar formation here. Same lineup for us. And they're going to do some rollout here. Now, this backer, you can kind of see his eyes. He's doing a poor job he has his eyes in the backfield. He should just be flying out. He should already be out here. And he's looking at the quarterback. And that was maybe my fault because this kid was actually a really sneaky athlete, number 8. I don't remember his name too. Great kid, super respectful. And so he's eyeing this guy thinking he's going to take off because they didn't like to throw it that much. And we end up giving up this route to the flat. Normally we'd be right underneath this. They wouldn't have had this ball. Okay, another similar look here. This is kind of a good view. And these guards are pulling. Let's see how we react here if we exchange at all. So we get inside. He busts. Oh, whoops, sorry. Oh, I might
That
have.
quarterback you're talking about had a cool name too, Lemon Jello, I believe, something like that. He was a good player though.
He was. Sorry, I lost that last play just because I kind of messed up. Okay, so here's some speed option stuff. So they're not going to block our end. So our end should immediately hit this guy. You can kind of see it here. Number 11 should punch this guy, and then he's just staying right down this line is where he should go. That's what he's coached to do. Let's see if he does it. He should punch. They're not blocking him on purpose. They're trying to read him. And then he should stay right down the line. He comes up the field a little bit. Luckily, we get a good fill by this other backer who's unblocked. And actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I need to backpedal just a little bit because we coached this a little different this week. Normally, he'd stay right down this line of scrimmage. In this situation, we said you're responsible for the quarterback because I watched this guy kind of hurt other teams. So I just said, you're going to take the quarterback, you're taking the pitch man, and you're taking dive. That's how this should look. So 50 should get over on dive. Pitch man, that's pretty good stuff. That back is super good, so he still turns. What do we hit him at the line of scrimmage, and he still gets 3 yards? Like, that's just the type of player he was. Just give me 1 second here. I had two more plays I wanted to show. This is kind of just some inside zone stuff. They're actually trying to do a little, looks like they're just trying to pull this little fold block.
Fold block action there.
I want to watch this defensive front though and see if they're all punching. They should all be punching, getting separation. They do a pretty good job of that. Give me 1 second here as I find this play. Now in my defense, I didn't coach this last year, and so all my good stuff is on my other huddle profile that ALA has still. I just got to find this play. Give me 1 second.
Coach, you do have your two inside backers reading both guards or just one?
Both guards. Yep, both guards.
Cody and I were having a discussion on that earlier in the week, so it's funny you mentioned that.
What did you guys decide to do?
To me, it made sense for the inside backer to read the guard right in front of him. But if you can see both, I said, hey, that's fine.
I'm on the other end of that.
He's on your side. They're reading both, but
I mean, baby steps. You gotta read for sure. You got to read the one right in front of you. If you can't do that, you're probably not going to play. I can't find it here.
True.
I was gonna pull up one more thing, but I'm just having a hard time finding it just because of kind of categorized a little bit different. But yeah,
no worries, Coach.
I'll stop sharing now though, just so I don't take up all the time. But
Coach, we really, really appreciate it. Interesting. You guys mixed fronts a little bit in terms of your odd to even fronts there a little bit. Is that something you talked about it? As long as you're not changing your fundamentals, you felt like you could do that. That's an interesting point I think you make there. We've talked about that as well a little bit, whether guys can effectively go from being a spilled player to a forced player, depending upon their alignment and different things like that. But really, really appreciate you joining us and looking forward to having you on again sometime. And make sure to tell Coach Reisdorf that we said hello. Love to have him on the show sometime as well. So we really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining us and wish you luck as you continue on. And thanks again. And we'll see everybody again next week for another edition of the Blue and Gold Gridiron Show. So thanks a lot.